Hello! I am very grateful that you are here. I am currently raising funds for my treatment, and your support means a lot to me. If you enjoy these stories, please subscribe to my channel and give it a like. This will help me continue doing what I love. Thank you for your support and for being with me. The story I want to share is about a fight for an inheritance left by a father and how a mother, prioritizing her new family over her own son, drove him out of their home. It's an emotional journey through loss, betrayal, and the pursuit of justice that made the hero stronger. Despite all obstacles, he didn't give up and decided to fight for what rightfully belonged to him. Let's dive into this challenging tale of justice and self-discovery. This is Reddit Storytime, the channel where I share real people's stories. I'm Jason, I'm 25 years old, and I live in the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois. This story is about my struggle for the house my father left me, and how my own mother kicked me out in childhood to build her new family there. It was a long journey, but I didn't give up. Here's how it happened. My father, Michael, was loved by everyone. He worked as an electrician for a small company in Chicago, but his true passion was classic cars. Every weekend we spent hours in the garage, repairing his Ford Mustang. He taught me how to change spark plugs and laughed when I accidentally spilled motor oil on myself. "Jason, it's part of the process," he said, wiping my hands with an old rag. In the evenings, we sat in the backyard, drinking homemade lemonade and listening to his Bob Dylan vinyl records. He told stories of his travels across America in his youth, about how he drove from Chicago to California. Dad loved baseball and took me to Chicago games. He was more than just my father, he was my best friend. But when I was 8, everything changed. One evening, he came home from work, complained of chest pain, and collapsed in the kitchen. Mom called an ambulance, but they couldn't save him. A heart attack. I remember the funeral at the local Baptist church. I stood beside Grandma Marjorie, holding her hand, unable to believe that Dad was gone. It felt like the world had stopped. That day left a scar on my heart that still hurts. Mom, Carol, dealt with the loss differently. Less than 4 months later, her new man, Steve, moved into our house. Steve was loud, loved to tell silly jokes, and always smelled of cheap cigarettes and cologne. Mom asked me to call him Dad. For me, Dad was irreplaceable, and Steve with his smug smile could never replace him. Steve had 2 children from a previous marriage, Emily, who was 10, and Brandon, who was 12. They moved into our home, and Mom decided I no longer fit in. Mom called me to the living room. I thought she wanted to talk about school or something, but she said, "Jason, go to Grandpa Ron's. They need help around the house, and it's getting crowded here." I was stunned. Our house had 4 bedrooms, and I knew my room was still empty. I begged her to let me stay. I cried all the way, but she didn't even look at me. Later, I found out she gave my room to Emily and Brandon to make them happy. I was just thrown out of my own house. Grandma Marjorie and Grandpa Ron became my saviors. Their ranch-style home was small but cozy. Grandma taught me to cook her signature mac and cheese, and Grandpa told stories of his youth working as a railroad engineer. They took me to church every Sunday. Though I was not very religious, these moments brought me peace. I attended a local school, joined the basketball team, and made friends. But deep down, I missed home. Mom came by every 3 to 4 months, bringing cheap gifts from Target, plastic cars, Marvel comic t-shirts, and said, "Jason, I love you very much. You know that, right?" I nodded. But one day, I couldn't hold it in any longer and asked, "If you love me, why can't I come home?" She was embarrassed and replied, "Grandma and Grandpa need your help. They're not young anymore." It was a lie. I knew they were fine on their own. Later, Grandma confessed that Mom gave my room to Emily and Brandon because Steve insisted his kids needed comfort. Mom valued them over me, and it broke my heart. In high school, I stopped waiting for her visits. I focused on my studies, graduated with honors, and got into a college in Chicago to study marketing. After graduation, I got a job at an advertising agency, and that's when I remembered the inheritance. Here's the twist. The house where Mom lived with Steve, Emily, and Brandon legally belonged to me. Before Dad passed away, he made a clear will, leaving everything he owned to me, including the house in the Chicago suburbs. The lawyer read the will at the funeral, and I remember Mom clenching her fists and turning away when she heard the house was mine. She tried several times to contest the will in court. But Dad was smart. He stipulated that I could manage the property only when I turned 21. Until then, no one had the right to take it away or sell it. Grandpa Ron once said, Your dad knew Carol might try to circumvent the law. He did everything to protect you. I was too young to understand it then, but now I'm grateful for his foresight. At 21, I gained access to the house documents, but didn't rush to act. I worked, lived with Grandma and Grandpa, and tried to build my life. But last year, I decided it was time. I wanted to rent the house to gather capital for a business. I called Mom to tell her about my plans, but she ignored my calls. Then I went to Grandma and Grandpa to discuss my idea. They exchanged looks and sighed. Grandma said, "Jason, this might be difficult. Carol and Steve are having tough times now." It turned out Steve lost his job as a manager in a logistics company due to downsizing and now worked night shifts at Costco. Emily, who was already 25, was pregnant, but her boyfriend left her without support. Brandon, who was 27, lived separately but occasionally returned to Mom when he ran out of money. I understood they wouldn't want to leave, but it was my house, and I had the right to it. I went to the house that was once my home. It looked miserable. The white paint on the walls was peeling, old tires and a broken grill lay in the yard, and the lawn was overgrown with weeds. I knocked, and Mom opened the door. Her smile was fake, like decorations in a cheap movie. She hugged me, but I felt a chill in her gesture. We hadn't seen each other in almost 10 years, as she stopped visiting when I became a teen. I hoped she would ask how I was doing, but she only looked at me as though waiting for me to say something unpleasant. "Just dropped by to say hi." "It's been a while," I said to ease the tension. She nodded. "Yes, it has. What brings you?" We sat in silence for about 10 minutes. The living room looked messy. Old magazines lay on the couch, an unfinished Bud Light can on the table. Emily, who was home, looked at me as if I came to cause a scene. I felt like a stranger in my own house. I didn't bring up the topic of eviction and went back to Grandma and Grandpa, deciding more preparation was needed. A week later was the 15th anniversary of Dad's death. Grandma and Grandpa organized a small service at the church, and I decided to do something special: donate food to a local homeless shelter and buy gifts for kids from poor families. Basketballs, board games, art sets. I spent half my month's salary on this. I emailed Mom an invitation to the service, but she didn't respond. I checked. She didn't even open the message. That hurt me. I decided to visit the house again. Emily opened the door. Without greeting, she blurted, "You're here again. What do you want?" "I want to talk to Mom," I replied calmly. "After the last conversation, she doesn't want to see you," she said rudely. I explained I came to invite Mom to the memorial service for Dad. Emily laughed. "That was 100 years ago. Get over it. Who cares?" I held back anger but was boiling inside. He was my father, and it's not your place to decide what I should remember. She rolled her eyes and went to her room, slamming the door. I left a note for Mom asking her to call. The next day she called and said she couldn't come because she was taking Emily to an ultrasound. I was disappointed but tried to be polite. "Okay, maybe you can make it for at least an hour? It's important to me." She sighed. "Jason, I have priorities. Emily needs my help." Those words hit like a knife. "Priorities? So I'm not a priority for you? You kicked me out of the house, and now you can't even come to honor Dad's memory?" Mom exploded. "You're ungrateful. I did everything so you'd have a normal life. Your father died 15 years ago, Jason. Come to terms with it." I couldn't hold it in. "Come to terms like you? You replaced Dad with Steve and his kids 4 months later and threw me out like garbage. You know, Dad wouldn't want you living in his house seeing who you've become." I hung up. At that moment, I realized I wouldn't endure it any longer. That same day, I called a lawyer. First update, I hired a lawyer, Mr. John Clark, who specializes in inheritance cases. He reviewed the will and confirmed the house is 100% mine. We drew up an official eviction notice with a 30-day period as required by Illinois law. I hoped Mom would understand the seriousness of the situation, but I was wrong. 2 days after the notice was delivered, she left me an angry voicemail. "Jason, are you out of your mind? This is my home, I raised you, and you turn on me. You're an ungrateful son. I'll hire a lawyer and you'll regret it." I laughed to myself. Raised? Grandma Marjorie and Grandpa Ron raised me, giving me love and support when Mom abandoned me. I blocked her number to avoid further quarrels, but she didn't stop. She visited Grandma and Grandpa's house and caused a scene. I was at work, but Grandma said Mom yelled, "You spoiled Jason. You've raised him into a spoiled, arrogant kid." Grandma and Grandpa, who are deeply religious, calmly replied, "Carol, this is Jason's house. He has the right to decide what to do with it." Mom blamed them for everything from bad upbringing to a conspiracy against her. I was shocked at her audacity. When I returned home, Grandma said, "Jason, we know you have the right to the house, but think of Emily. She's pregnant. Give them at least a month to find new housing." I reluctantly agreed, though I was seething inside. I said, "All right, but that's the last concession. No more chances." A few days later, Mom asked for a meeting. I went to Grandma and Grandpa's and deliberately made her wait an hour, wanting her to feel what it's like to be ignored. She was annoyed but held it together. She sat on the couch and started, "I can't sit here forever. I have things to do. Let's talk." I replied with sarcasm. Of course, finding a new place isn't easy. She threw the eviction notice on the table. What is this nonsense? I won't leave the house. It's my home. I've lived there for 15 years. No, it's my home, I said calmly. Legally, it's mine. You knew about the will but lived there for 15 years, ignoring my rights. She started yelling, "You have no right. I'm your mother. I sacrificed everything for you." I couldn't hold back. Sacrificed? You kicked me out at 9 to please Steve and his kids. You didn't come to my birthdays, didn't call on Christmas, didn't care about my life. What kind of mother are you? She tried to manipulate and cried, "How can you do this to me after all I've done for you?" I interrupted. "You've done nothing. Grandma and Grandpa raised me, and you just took over my house." She threatened to hire a lawyer. A lawyer? I laughed. "Please, let's see what the court says. You have 20 days. She left, slamming the door. I realized it was just the beginning. Second update, the situation turned into a real war. Emily decided to play the victim. She came to Grandma and Grandpa's house and threw a tantrum, yelling that I was bullying a poor pregnant woman. She even threatened to sue me. When I told the lawyer, he said, "Jason, this will only strengthen our position. They're digging their own grave." But the real surprise came from Steve. One evening, he sent me a voice message. "Listen, kid, you don't know who you're dealing with. A tough man who loves boasting about his strength. He once worked as a bouncer in a bar. Grandma warned me he's hot-tempered, but I wasn't going to fear him." I saved the message and handed it to the police, along with a statement about the threats. My lawyer said it's their biggest mistake. The judge will see who the aggressor is. A few days before the 30-day term ended, Mom tried one last trick. She called Grandma and started crying, begging to save Emily and her unborn child. Grandma conveyed her words to me, but I was resolute. They had 15 years to prepare. I'm not a charity. On eviction day, I arrived with my lawyer and 2 police officers. Mom, Steve, and Emily greeted us with angry screams. Steve grabbed a baseball bat and started waving it, but stopped when he saw the police. Mom tried to manipulate. "You can't kick us out. We have a pregnant girl. Give us at least a month. It's inhumane." The police looked at me, and I replied, "They threatened me, ignored the notice, and knew about the will for 15 years. I gave them 30 days as required by law. They had enough time." Emily started crying, begging for at least a week. Mom joined in, saying I was heartless. I clenched my fists, but remained calm. 3 hours, pack your things. The police supported me because I acted strictly according to the law. They packed their belongings under police supervision, sending me hateful looks. Steve even tried to shoulder check me as he walked past. But I stood my ground. They threw me out at 9. After that, we left. The police officer said to bring the keys to the station, from where I could retrieve them. My lawyer advised getting a court order preventing Mom, Steve, or Emily from returning and bothering me. I did this, explaining that violations would lead to arrest. The bitterness on their faces was unforgettable. A week later, I rented the house to a young family, a couple with 2 kids who just moved to Chicago. They take care of the house, and the first payment is already in my marketing agency's account. Mom and her family haven't contacted me again, and I hope it stays that way. Grandma and Grandpa support me, though they say I could have been softer due to Emily's pregnancy. Grandma once said, "Jason, you did the right thing, but don't let anger blind your heart. Forgive them for your sake." I'm not ready to forgive yet. But her words made me think. This story taught me to stand up for myself, not fear defending the truth, and value those who truly love me, Grandma, Grandpa, and the memory of my father. In my view, I acted fairly, though perhaps I should have started the eviction process earlier. Mom knew about the will but lived in the house for 15 years, ignoring my rights. She chose her new family over me, and that was her choice. I bear no grudge, but I won't allow anyone to manipulate me again. This struggle was tough, but it made me stronger. I believe Dad would be proud of me for standing up for his legacy. The story highlights the importance of fighting for your rights and upholding justice. It emphasizes that even in the toughest situations, you must stay true to your principles and not allow manipulation. Jason found the strength to protect his inheritance despite difficult relations with his mother. This story also reminds us of the importance of support from those who truly love us and valuing moments spent with loved ones. Ultimately, it teaches us that our actions shape our future and make us stronger. Thank you for watching this incredible story with us. If it was interesting or valuable to you, like and subscribe to the channel so as not to miss the next stories.